me now, former IDF spokesperson Jonathan Conricus, and the chair of urban warfare studies at West Point, John Spencer. It's good to have you both. Mr. Conricus, pleasure as always. Do I have it right so far in terms of your reckoning of what Israel has done to retaliate and how?
Yeah, there's something odd with the color of the screen, but I'll continue. I can assure the viewers that I'm okay. So what's happening now is that, as I think you said correctly, this is the first chapter. The first chapter in, I would say, a new book of the Middle East, whereby Israel, I think, is changing its strategy. And what we're seeing is the first embodiment of that change in strategy, whereby Israel is signaling to Iran that 25 years of Iranian aggression against Israel without real responses by Israel against Iran for that aggression, they have come to an end, and Israel is now beginning to enact a different strategy that will hold the Iranian regime accountable for their acts of aggression, whether direct ballistic missiles fired at Israel twice, almost 400 missiles in total, or indirect through its 7 proxy countries that they have around Israel. And I think that when there's a lot of information coming out relating to the specific targets. As far as I know, at this stage, we are not talking about neither nuclear nor oil, but I think that we are talking about military targets that have relevance to the regime.
And of course, many of those are in population centers by design. So that to strike them is to strike the general population and, of course, make it look like you're victimizing the people that the regime is actually setting up to be victimized and is victimizing itself through its oppressive actions. In terms of how this is being done, what is our understanding, Mr. West Point, about whether or not they're doing this through fighter jets, or do you think this is through long-range missiles that Israel has?
I would weigh more on the fighter jets with that, which you called it right with the refueling and things, but it's really hard to tell at this point. But, two things I'll differ on you on. One, the precision of this, and the IDF said precise attack of military targets, and that this can't be viewed as escalation. I think that's the problematic language we're using after the Islamic regime in Iran, one, attacks Israel since October 7th with its proxies, but then directly attack Israel and there being very little consequences. After the last attack of the 300 cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, both Israel and the United States don't do it again. Why is defense or survival claimed to be escalation? When you're attacked, you can defend yourself. The United States and Israel said there would be severe consequences if the Islamic regime attacked again. They attacked again with one of the biggest ballistic missile attacks on Israel ever in history. And this seems to be a limited response, but I agree with Jonathan that it just might be the start of it. But the behavior of the Islamic regime is what has to be changed. This isn't about escalation or tit for tat. This is about changing the Islamic regime's behavior where it's not okay to attack another nation because you feel like it.
Right. I mean, look, I think the word escalation goes to Jonathan's point about Israel making a determination that it has to defend itself more actively and directly against the Iranian regime. That's the point. It's not about, I think, exacerbating would be the word that you don't want to use, that this is Israel trying to make it worse. Jonathan Conricus, I think that this is almost an act of defense through desperation. I mean, what else are they going to do? Just sit there and keep letting the Iranian regime come at them any way they can?
Yeah, many Israelis would say that this is about 15 or 20 years late, and the 2 attacks by Iran late. Israelis have been suffering the indirect attacks of Iranian proxies for about 20 years. Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Iranian proxies in Syria, and the Houthis in Yemen. And this has been going on for a very, very long time, killing many Israelis, wounding many Israelis, and really holding Israel hostage to a very hostile Iranian foreign policy under this regime. I think that what we're seeing now is that beginning to change. And regarding precision, I agree here with what John said. I think that what Israel is doing is using manned platforms and delivering bombs with pilots controlling it. I would be very surprised if Israel were to choose to bring out the Jericho missiles that Israel has, or any other advanced long-range precision weaponry. I don't think that we're quite there yet. And I think that we have the capabilities to effect significant, very precise damage using manned platforms. And I think that as the time will go by, we'll have more information about the specific targets and casualties. So far, I'm monitoring Iranian media. I am not hearing about any Iranian civilian casualties. On the contrary, the Iranians are claiming that the sounds of explosions are their air defenses. I find that questionable, and I do not think that their air defenses will be able to take down incoming Israeli missiles. But we will have to be patient and understand the situation better.
The pictures tell the story clearly. It's not defense. Things are landing. So, John, U.S. involvement. We know obviously it is an ally to Israel. The play from Iran here will be that the United States is stepping up its role, and then it becomes, how does the United States articulate its reaction to the retaliation by Israel, and what does this mean in terms of the larger picture of pieces involving Russia and China?
Yeah, I think this is, and I agree with Jonathan too. The demonstration of Israel's power against the Islamic regime is also important, as it was after April, and this, as we learned what the targets were, how the Islamic regime's air defenses, didn't help them. But for the United States, I'm sure an increased defensive posture, which we would hope that this would not further be escalated by the Islamic regime, and that all the other actors like, Russia and its connection to Iran, especially with Iran's help of their campaign in Ukraine, this is what they don't want to happen. So this is why this should be viewed as another constrained attempt by Israel and others to prevent escalation, to change the behavior by demonstrating, like, look, we have capabilities. You're not changing your behavior,
right.
But also that this should be followed by more than just military action. This should be followed by maximum sanction of the Islamic regime, so it doesn't have the capabilities that is developed under our watch.
Do you think the United States, John, had involvement in this operation?
I think it's unlikely currently based on the political situation, but the United States has been very firm that they will absolutely defend Israel against further Islamic regime attacks.
Senior White House officials, my EP Dusty is telling me that they were informed by Israel, so a few hours in advance. So the indication of that messaging, Jonathan Conricus, is that America is saying, yeah, we knew, but we didn't do it. That's the signal they're giving. Now, Jonathan, let's talk about that for 1 second here. Israel doing this, is this unfair for me to say this? And please tell me if it is. Israel is in part motivated to retaliate this way because there is somewhat of a question in Israel about the level of support from American leadership. Is that part of the calculus of what Israel has to do alone versus waiting for allies?
Yeah, I will definitely answer that. I'll just say that the videos that we're seeing, these are from a few hours before, and those, I'm not entirely sure that they are in relation to anything that was dropped from the air. This is an explosion in central Tehran at a defense ministry building, but it happened a few hours ago, and I'm not sure that it's air munitions related. Something exploded, and it's a defense establishment location, but it's unclear at this point, so I don't want people to be confused and to see burning flames in the center of Tehran and to have it associated with Israel. It may be. Now, regarding what you said, I would say that, Israel has, I think, a very clear understanding and a lot of skin in the game, unlike the US and many other countries who may think that this is far enough for comfort, far enough away from comfort from an American perspective. Israel doesn't see Iranian aggression like that. Israel doesn't see the Iranian nuclear program as something that can be allowed to become real. And I think, therefore, Israel is propelled to do more and to take matters into its own hand. I think it's important to emphasize that I am pretty sure that whatever Israel did tonight was known in advance to CENTCOM and to the White House, and that the targets that are being struck are known in advance, and I wouldn't say approved, but at least that they wouldn't have some very strong American opposition to these targets being struck. Right. There's very important cooperation going on, and I would say that Israel knows that it isn't fighting alone. It is fighting first. It is fighting on behalf of itself, but just like many times in the past, Israel is doing the world a favor, just like it did when it dealt with Iraqi nuclear weapons in 1981, and just like it did in 2007. Israel has this tendency of going after regional bullies before they become global problems, and I think that is what we're seeing now. I'm not saying that Israel has struck or is going to immediately strike Iranian nuclear military targets, but I'm drawing the comparison here between history and what we're seeing now, and answering your question about Israel's need and urgency to act before it is too late. Sometimes perhaps wishing that there was stronger American support, and sometimes thanking America for its support and its steadfastness.
Look, it's certainly playing out in our election, John. I hear it all the time. There is a perception about which candidate supports Israel and to what degree and how. But let's put that aside because of the urgency. John, last question. Is it only reasonable to believe that you're not one and done in a situation like this? That, well, they sent the 200 missiles, you did what you did, that's that. That is naive, no?
I would agree with that assessment, especially after we saw April with a one and done, a demonstration of Israel's capabilities wasn't enough to deter the Islamic regime. So I doubt that this is and the way the IDF statement came out that we have begun hitting military targets indicates that there is more to come. But, with the U.S., I would agree with Churchill. Like, the only thing worse than fighting with allies is fighting without allies. And United States is Israel. Israel is the United States' greatest ally in the Middle East. And we have said that they've had to stand alone before and they never will again. And I believe that.
John Spencer, Jonathan Conricus, thank you both on short notice coming on to help us understand. I also want the audience to know, I see a little bit of panicked reaction. The video we were showing you of Tel Aviv is from October 1st, when the regime launched the rockets. We have no indication that anything has been coming in to Tel Aviv or in Israel at this point. That was old video. It said October 1st on it. Gentlemen, thank you and be well and stay safe. All right, we're going to take